I would like to start with a special note to sponsors and our grade makers. A big thank you to everybody, community, district and media, and all of our grade makers, because without their contribution, this event wouldn't have been possible. Money is very important part of this event. We can't do after party if we do not have money, and without them, we can't do anything. Another big round of applause for all the organizers and volunteers, because if they are not there, money is worthless. So they are the ones who make money and money important. So a big round of applause for all of them. Okay, a little bit about me. I like to play video games. That's like my hobby. I like to tinker with gadgets, stuff like to explore technology. I also like to cook. My wife made me learn cooking, and I believe I can be a good cook. Apart from Maggie and tea, I can actually cook something, and that's at least what I think. Maybe my wife thinks differently, but that's about me. Let's look at the agenda for today. We are going to talk about introduction to WebOps, what WebOps is, why we are here, why we are going to talk about it, and why it is important. After that, we'll look at how we can embrace the mindset of WebOps, why WebOps is needed, and how we can inculcate WebOps in our day-to-day life. And then we look at our open source approach for scaling WebOps solution for any website, be it Drupal, be it WordPress, be it any platform, and how we can make our life simpler, easier by using our open source tool. Okay, so let's start with the introduction to WebOps. How many of us has created websites? Probably everybody. And most of the time, when we create website, we have come into this particular quote, right? A well-designed website is not only aesthetically pleasing, but it has to be efficient. It has to perform. It has to generate something for the end user. It has to generate something for customer. If it's only aesthetically pleasing, our customer is going to come to us and say, "Do this design. How can I make it work?" So I was trying ChatGPT actually, and then I just asked ChatGPT, okay, what is a good website? That's the code I got from ChatGPT, and I think I really liked it, so I just put it in here. Let's look at this. How many of us relate to this? So you have a very good website, but it's driven by some jugaad. Right, in India, jugaad is very famous. Everything is working perfectly on the front end, but in the back end, we have just made it work. And when it goes live, generally, I think the biggest problem I have faced, or I have seen people face, is once you start to run performance tests using Google Page Insights or using GT Metrics, all those tools, then customer really comes to you and says, "Dude, what's happening? I have 39 on my mobile. How I can make it work? How can I improve it?" That's one problem which we face. But by the time we get to know that it's already very late. Solution to fix those often result into reworking or something which we wouldn't have done if we would have done it right in the first way. So that's where WebOps comes into picture. Now, what is WebOps? How many of you have heard about DevOps, development operations? Okay. WebOps is quite similar to DevOps, but different as well. DevOps is a part of WebOps. WebOps is basically made up of three things: marketing, web, and IT. ID and security. So to run a website, WebOps means basically website and operations. We club those terms, and that's how WebOps term was formed. We didn't found this term. I don't know who found it, but I really like this term because it gives the value to customer, and it encapsulate everything that you do on the website, starting with development, starting with making sure the website is efficient. Second and third part are important, but as developers, we sometimes ignore them or do not pay enough attention to them. Marketing is the big one. How many people in this room hate marketing? People from marketing team who comes to you and say, "I need this component built in one day." Things like that. As a developer, whenever that has happened to me, I no, it's not going to be possible, right? With WebOps mindset, we can make IT, marketing, and security work together. We can deliver value that marketing is looking for. We can deliver value that security is looking for. That is WebOps for us. Why WebOps? We all know time is money. If we embrace the WebOps from the first day of writing the code or setting up the infrastructure, whatever, right? Ultimately, you will see over the period of time, you will save so much of time that will impact your efficiency, speed, quality, and ultimately your cost would reduce. Because We will see further in this talk what actually WebOps includes. But if we do all those things from the day one, our efficiency would increase, which means our cost and everything would decrease by a lot. Okay, any questions so far on this? Cool. Embracing WebOps mindset. Like we talked about what WebOps is, why it is important, money ultimately, right? How can I save money for myself? How can we be more efficient? How do I embrace the mindset of WebOps? We talk about a lot of things, but how do I do it, right? Whatever I'm going to talk about, we all know it. There is nothing new in it, but how do we make sure we inculcate it into our daily practice? WebOps also sort of related to a lot of automation, and what we know is automation is difficult. Automation is time taking, but at the end, it is worth it because it will save you tons of hours. Okay, let's look at this thing. So, for us, for human beings, I think these 5 senses are very important. We talk about taste, we talk about vision, touch, smell, hearing. If we do not have any of these senses, our life would be very hard. We would have trouble in almost everything. So these 5 senses are very important to a human, and at the same time, we didn't have to learn them, right? Once we did it in the right way, when we were kids, when we were infant, all it comes very naturally to us, right? So we can identify taste, we can smell things, right? Same way, WebOps. Once we inculcate all these 5 things into our daily process, it will come naturally to you. You won't have to do anything extra. Like if you are talking about automation, if you've done a lot of automation, if you have already talked about performance, done something about performance, these things comes into your workflow, and then you don't have to think twice. The way you won't have to think, like whenever you breathe, you don't have to think that I'm breathing, right? Same way, if we inculcate that into habit, it's going to be an easy thing. Let's see what and how. Enough theory. How and what is included into WebOps. First thing is isolated environments, on-demand environments. What those are. So whenever we are writing code, right? What happens generally? We create a pull request and then we merge it into an environment, develop environment, and then all the testing happens on that. If something breaks, if our code is breaking, that whole environment is broken now. If you are a developer, you will be called out. Okay, dude, you need to fix this. This is breaking everything. I have a client UAT. I can't do anything. The solution is to use on-demand environment, which is like isolated environments. How you can do it? So, for example, I have raised a PR over here. It gave me a link. Basically, that's an isolated environment where I can test my changes. I can give this environment to my QA and let them do whatever they want to do without impacting anything. My architects, my PMs, whoever is looking at my site can actually go to this environment, test the feature, and give their approval. So before even you merge the code into your developed environment, you get an isolated environment and everything can happen over there. So one part of WebOps is making sure every pull request has an isolated environment whenever you open up the pull request. And it's also important for finances, for cost, that once your PR pull request is approved, your changes are approved, you tear down this environment. Otherwise, you'll end up 300, 400, 500 of these environments, which are ultimately going to cost you. It can be done manually. You can basically have some, you're using Pantheon or Akia or any other hosting providers, go into their hosting UI and create an environment, but that is a lot of manual work. Write some automation. We have a lot of automation available. We'll talk about it at the end, how you can automate these things, but that is one part of the WebOps. Performance checks, the thing which I was talking about. So we generally use Lighthouse. What if from the first time you get scores like this on every change? So you raise a PR having some change. Let's say you are working on a new feature, new component, something, right? And your automated checks are running on that one. They are telling you, okay, how this component is performing. What is the SEO score of this component? What is the accessibility score of this component? Is this component following best practices? If it makes it easier for you to look at things, okay, this is how my thing is performing, which means whatever I have built, it's going to work. Whatever things I'm going to build in future, all those are following standards, meeting the expectation, and those are working, right? So every PR, if we can automate it, then it's going to be very good. So this is an example of from one of my projects where we had all these practices from the beginning. This is the end result. our scores on the homepage when we went live on the mobile was 9600, 9692, right? So that is the impact of if you do it from the right day. And believe me, this site has hundreds of pixels, GTM pixels, which is a nightmare for any developer. How do I optimize them? Key is you start optimizing it from the first day of the writing of code. Right? Automated updates. How many of you have struggled to keep your website up to date whenever there are security updates, whenever there are module updates coming in? How hard it is, or has anybody faced the struggle with it? Right. So it involves everybody, right? Not just the developer. Even if it's a small security fix, you have to do it. A developer has to do it first. Then a QA would need to test it. PM needs to coordinate all the efforts with marketing, with project managers, with stakeholders, and then you have to get the release out. What if you have these tools at your disposal and you can just, you don't have to worry anything. An automation is running, which is going to get my website up to date every day. So that's what automated updates are. What we do basically we have continuous checks that are running. So Composer is kind of mandatory for it. So I'm by default assuming because Drupal, you can't do anything outside of Composer in Drupal. Drupal 7, there were ways, but not in Drupal 8 or moving forward in Drupal 11. So with the help of automation, we have developed a security, and it's an open script, right? We'll talk about it later. What it does, it keeps checking all of your status in Composer files. What are the modules that are outdated? What are the Composer libraries that has security release? And it will, for you, raise an automatic pull request with the list of all the changes that has happened. Okay, these are the changes that has happened. This PR contains your updates, contains your database changes, contains everything. You get an isolated environment to test it, and post that, which I'll talk in later. You have certain quality checks that happens. You have visual regression happening. You have SEO checks happening. So all the process which we are right now doing manually is automated. At the end, you still need manual intervention. It's not like you automation is there and you are free. You still need a technical architect or a developer or a lead's eyes on the code so that they can see the functional areas. If you do not have automated testing or test coverage to look at these things, but it takes like 90% of the work out from your plate, and then by click of a button, everything goes right with backups, with the possibility of restore if something goes wrong. So that's another point of WebOps. Right? So if you look at this, these are all the checks that were executed on once this automated pull request was created, and then see PHP has failed. And that's how I got to know, okay, something is failing, this update is not going to work. And that's where a PM can come into picture. How do we relate? How PM is going to know that something is failed? Another automation. It is going to trigger an alert to your stakeholders of that project that automated updates have failed. It needs manual intervention. Efficiency. So once you have all those things figured out, right, your efficiency is going to increase. Now you are saving time every day with whatever you are doing to do something interesting, to do something which you always wanted, right? Another thing to increase efficiency is utilization of AI. We have a lot of AI tools, open source AI tools out there which we can use. So I'm assuming most of the people over here are developers or from the tech background. So how many of you have struggled with getting documentation right in the first day? Okay. Now, use AI, put AI into your editor, put AI into your GitHub workflow. AI will generate automation for that, and that is the automation generated by AI. It looks at your PR, it looks at your code changes, and then says, okay, these are the new features, these are the configuration changes, and this is going to be the impact, right? So this documentation, generation of this documentation is happening dynamically on your PR based on your context of the PR. It just doesn't do the documentation. It gives you the workflows, the diagrams, and also it does job of your technical architect, peer review everything. It will give you a detailed review. This function is wrong. This function should be implemented in this way, and that saves a lot of time. Okay, yeah. Okay, now we have automated updates. We have in the automated section, I just based on quality of it, right? So how we are doing with the quality, same here which we got from the automated updates, right? This is the visual regression report on this. You will see two sides of things. First is the reference image. So when automation is happening, you have created a PR, and that's that has updates. It will take the screenshot in that your isolated environment. It will compare that screenshot with your production environment and tell you, okay, everything is looking fine. You don't have to worry about it. So your scope of QA has reduced because automation has taken care of that. If something fails, you'll get the results here, and then you'll know, okay, something is broken, right? On that same note, you will also get list of your accessibility, performance, SEO scores, right? Okay, this is how your site is performing. All of it is like we should be able to configure everything. If you want to just do performance, we can use just the performance score, the pages you want to test. Right? This is the setup that happens on the first day when you include WebOps in your project. Okay. Now everything is done. We have automated PRs coming into the picture. We have performance check. We have quality check. Let's say everything is passing and we are pretty sure. Okay, everything is working. How do I get it to production is the next step. Again, automation. What you can do is simply so in all these slides we are using GitHub Actions a lot, and we have lot of scripts written in GitHub Action to make automation easier possible. For release, what we generally do, we have a one-click deployment policy which takes your PR, push it to production, basically run all the quality checks, everything, creates backups, give you a backup point which you can restore. Everything is happening in one click. So as you click, your workflow would run, which says release to production, and it will deploy your code and everything to production. Okay, this is how it works basically. So it's creating your backups, it's deploying your code, and post that it will do other things like clearing caches and everything. And then you'll get to know the notification as well. After this deployment, what has happened to your website? On this screenshot one, this is an example of the deployment that we did. After this, we got 58% reduction in our error rate. And those are the stats that your customer cares about, that you care about, right? To really understand what am I doing things correctly and how those are impacting. Most of the time it is our gut feeling that okay, what I have done is correct and everything is working fine because it looks fine on the front end. But how we can back this up with data, right? So these tools, you can actually look at the data deployment wise deployment. Right. Now this is where it becomes interesting. We have deployed. How do we make sure our deployments hasn't broken anything? How do we make sure our deployments are actually creating value for customer, not degrading the performance of the website? We use New Relic for it. We integrate New Relic to our deployments. Now, if you look at this, we have these multiple deployments going on. We had one on 13th of August till 24th, 16th of September 24th. It gives you all the details about what was the baseline on that deployment, what happened after that deployment, and then gives you alert accordingly. So if you look at some of these things, our server score is reducing. Like on 13th of August, it was 0.79, and on September 26th, it was 0.57. Right? So there is a decrease in the score. Now, based on the metric and what the score does, you'll be able to trigger alerts. If this is positive, you don't have to do anything. But let's say this was not expected. You were expecting that server score, Aptex score should go up, not go down. You can actually add this into an alert and you get an alert. All these are based on the deployments. So theory over here is all your deployment needs to have a tag. Right, then just like GitHub tags, right? You can point a particular version of code with a tag, and same way you can tag your deployments in New Relic, compare those two tags and identify differences between them. What happened before this tag? What happened after this tag? And do a lot of automation around it. Right. So another monitoring. Right. So so the way it works is from the first day you have all these tools set up, and now you are getting real reports. What is my LCP of the whole site? 1.39, which is a really good LCP score. But what if it goes into needs improvement into poor? We don't want to see that, or we don't want to wait for that towards the very end of the project, right? We want to see it in half development cycle or whenever something goes wrong. Okay, this change has screwed up your website. Look at it, fix it, revert it, whatever. But that notification and that analytics is very important. And then you get all the page by page summary of how your pages are doing. Alerts, right? These are the alerts that we get whenever we do deployment. Your high page load time on the site, right? You did deployment, something happened. All of a sudden you are saying, okay, my site is not performing. One way is you have a person 24/7 on-call support, continuously looking at the site. That is going to cost you money because you have to hire that person or hire an agency or do something. What if you can just automate it? You use Neuralink or all the tools for alerting, which basically gives you an alert if something is going wrong on your site. Do check it, and then you go figure it out and fix it. Same way, other alert is basically from our SEO tool, which is not our open source SEO tool that we have automated. Okay, these are the pages which do not have meta description. These are the pages which are 404 on your website. Go check it, fix them, and then a content editor can go and check it. So everything you have now you're depending on alerts and everything, which makes things very, very easier. Right? Important part, another important aspect to all of this is communication. Okay, you have all these things figured out. You have all the alerts working. But what if you are not getting alerts? You are not being communicated at the right time. If something goes wrong today, you get, let's say somebody came after a day or something and then, okay, something went wrong. Then none of these things matter. So communication is a very crucial part, and project managers present here would love it. And this is where we as a developer sometimes we raise PRs, but sometimes we forgot to move the Jira tickets into right lane. How we can make our project managers or QA's life easier? Automation. Whenever you are raising a PR, hook it up to Jira. If you are using Jira, if you are using some other tool, hook it up to your workflow. So whenever you raise a PR, right, you can say, okay, this is getting ready for review. Post a comment on the Slack, okay, or on the Jira that this pull request has been raised for this issue. Right now, people looking at the Jira board, they know okay, something is happening with this. If then your automations would run, something fails, kick it back to reopen or in progress state. Right. If technical architect or whoever is the person going to merge this PR, if they merge it, another workflow triggers which moves it to lane QA, where now QA is notified, okay, some work is coming for you to QA, right? So this makes everybody's life easier, keeps everybody up to date, and your time to do all these things decreases. Because frankly, if you ask me, I hate moving Jira tickets here and there. I would always prefer an automation or something that can do it for me. Another thing that we can do is time logging. I don't know how many of you, but I do hate time logging. Whenever my project managers are asking, okay, dude, you need to log time every day. I hate it, right? So how can we find a better way to do it? Automation, the answer is automation. PR, for developers, whenever you are doing a PR, right, you can always utilize Git commits, your pull request summary, pull request descriptions to put up a small syntax, right? If you are not using Jira, if you are not using a industry standard tool, like use something that if you are in-house tool, create a syntax in your Google, in your GitHub commits, and write a small script which will read that syntax and log the time in your preferred platform, whatever you use for time logging. No more tension. While you are writing the commit message, just put it. I took 10 hours. If you didn't, don't put that. But whatever time you have taken, just put it there and it will log time for you. Again, you save. So upfront there is an investment of time to make that script. But after that, let's say you take 2 minutes to time log. Look at, and if your project is for 3 months, 90 days, 22 into 366 working days, 3 minutes or 5 minutes every day, which is almost equals to 300 minutes. 300 minutes is 5 hours. And that is one person 5 hours. If you spend that 5 hours in the beginning of the project writing that script, moving forward, you are going to save so much of time on all of your projects, which can be utilized for doing something more meaningful. So let's say you want to explore AI, you want to do something new. Use that time to learn something or explore something. Another way of notification, let's say your site is down and nobody is there to look into it, right? What if somebody on their mobile gets an alert whenever site goes down? This polygon went down on September, I think 27 or something, September 11, and we had this alert coming up. So we were able to fix it within 15 minutes. If you look at it, 9:44, the site was down. 10:04, we were able to fix it. Because we got this alert on our mobile app in Slack that, okay, site is down, you need to do something about it. When we went there, it was a false alert though, but you get alert, right? And that is what important. Nobody needs to monitor your site. I'm not saying you don't need support team, you still need them, but we can make their life easier. We can make our life easier by using all these automation tools. Okay, now I think the most part is all of these things for some customers are not important at all. How do we decide what is important, what should we focus on, and what is need for that customer, right? So these are the 4 things that before starting any projects, we take into consideration and we focus on, okay, what is the vision of the customer? How important their web presence is. For some customer, it's not important. Trust me, they just want a web presence so that they can say, okay, we have a website, but their mobile application is important, but not the web application, right? So vision of the customer is very important. In the first meetings, you need to establish what this customer wants, right? Second is vision and needs. Okay, this is what customer wants. From that, you derive the needs of that customer, and then you move to size of the customer. Can customer afford some of these things? Can customer pay for these things? Some of these, like most of these are open source, but still for some tools you'll have to pay, right? Is customer willing to do it? How much as a company, as developers, you want to do for the customer? That is, all those things are taken consideration into size. And then the last and most important point, must have. What are the things, irrespective of the customer, you want to do in your website to make your life easier? From my perspective, I would always put all the PR requests, pull request checks in place, which makes my life easier because I don't have to review ton of code now. AI is doing that for me, which means I'm saving time. I'm probably mentoring something in that time, or figuring out something new, or maybe playing just video games because that's what I like, right? So how do I save time for myself is very important. So based on these things, we can basically decide out of whatever we have discussed, right? New Relic, automated deployments. Does this customer really need it, right? And then decide, okay, these are the needs, these are the must-have, and devise your strategy accordingly. Okay. I want to talk about a little bit about Polymer. That is, so before I go into this, any questions? I'm rushing it through a bit because I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So any questions?
So the SEO tool you talked about for monitoring meta tags,
Mhm.
what was the name of that?
Screaming Frog.
Screaming Frog.
Yes. So we use Screaming Frog. So the way
Was it open source something?
it is open source.
Okay.
It does come with subscription as well if you want to do it, but most of the things that we do for SEO are open source.
Okay.
So all these tools, right? New Relic, except New Relic. New Relic is a paid tool. You also get some sort of free credits with New Relic, but all the tools that we have seen over here are either GitHub Actions, our own custom scripts that we have written for different customers, right? Or completely open source tools.
And about the time zone,
Yeah.
basically, it will just consider like if you raise the PR and but it is not. Let's suppose my ticket requires around 24 hours, like 3 working days.
Mm-hmm.
But I am raising the PR at the last.
Mm-hmm.
So it will not take the 24 hours or
So
manual intervention is required in that case.
we can automate it if you want to, but then you will also have to.
Like what parameter we will consider?
So we tried to do it, but we didn't. Reason being, we all work in distributed teams, right? If you are working from India, you have different time zones. If you are working from, let's say, Europe, you will have different time zone, right? And we are not working 24 hours. So if you do it based on time zone or time or something, you would not get correct data or correct logs, right? Your logs most of the times would be way too much because now you have to figure it out. Okay, what are my working hours? When I start working, when I stop working, right? So that's why we just made it manual. Okay, based on it's whenever you time block, it's developer decide how much time they have spent into this, right? So simple in the commit message. So let's say it's a 13-story pointed ticket, which is going to go over 2 weeks. But you won't commit everything at once. You will be making small commits, right? As you make progress. With every commit, you just put up a timer. Okay, this is the commit. It took me 3 hours. T colon 3h. It has to be simple, smart. Your automation would become. Jira has it.
Feature like whatever the time you are spending in the on that particular team, it logs that thing. Right.
Jira has it, but then there is a manual intervention. Like you get automatic clocks. You have to start it. You have to end it. Here you just put okay what time you have basically actually spent on.
Exactly what I have done. I have written the file with start and stop the things.
Okay, nice.
Same
I like.
thing,
Yeah, sorry.
same thing like a New Relic, we have pager duty also, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do
So
have.
it is connected to New Relic is connected to pager duty, and then it is.
Then you can get the alerts, absolutely. So there are a lot more tools like we use New Relic because this is from Pantheon. I think with Pantheon, so no way I'm promoting Pantheon, but Pantheon gives New Relic for free. So that's our like by default. Okay, if a customer is on Pantheon,
So they're
Yeah.
spending too much money.
yeah. So we try to for our customers as company, right? Or my motto is find the best possible solution for them, and which is cost effective at the same time delivers the value to them. And all these tools are important consideration of it.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
No.
No.
So, you mentioned you have written deployment, everything is automated. So, if have you done this one for the multi-site setup or is yeah? So in that case, sometimes the things will not work on a few sites and it will work on the main. So in that case, how you have done the revert part or fixing those things? Is it through the manual process or it's automated or?
That's a very good question. Actually, it depends on what type of multi-site setup you have. So, for example, if you are using Acquia Cloud Site Factory, right? So you have single code base, but you have multiple sites, right? And then you can take individual sites as an isolated site because their database is different. If it's a code-related issue, the biggest problem with multi-site is your code is strictly tied to all of your site, even though your database is different. So let's say, for example, you have made a mistake in your code, which should probably be caught by your automation that you have, but let's say it's a very specific edge case which you forgot, then you have to do manual intervention for Acquia Site Factory. For Pantheon, the regular Drupal multi-site, Pantheon doesn't really support it. Pantheon has its own concept of custom upstream. So what it does is basically you create your site, which is called custom upstream. From that you create as many sites as you want. Custom upstream allows you to have a separate code base. So all these sites, even though they are created from one single code base, ultimately in the infrastructure, they have their own code base, they have their own database and everything. So they are isolated sites. On these sites, it becomes easy. Okay, let's say your deployment is running on Pantheon, custom upstream. Some of the site, 10 sites, 2 sites were passed, third one was failed. Then you can only revert it for third one. And this is the customization that you have to do for that specific customer, because multi-site is pretty much hosting dependent, where you are hosting your architecture dependent. So automation can fix it, but you'll have to customize it to your need. Okay, I'll keep moving forward. Okay, so what we have done, so over the past few years, we have seen, okay, this is a growing need and everybody needs something of this sort to make their life easier, right? So as District Polygon, we have started to work on a tool called Polymer. We are calling it a WebOps manager tool. What we are aiming from this tool, you put this tool into your site, be it Drupal, be it WordPress, and this tool will do all the automation for you. Obviously, it comes with standard automation script. Multi-site, for example, you'll have to customize it, but you'll get the basic scripts out of it. So that's the tool, right? Since most of the things that we are doing is open source, put this tool in your website, run some commands, and it will do it. What it currently does, it gives you a Drupal update plugin, which means your updates are, it's automatically, so it's updating everything on your Drupal site, but not updating it. You run a command, your Drupal site would be updated on your local. Then it comes with automatic updates. You enable this feature. It will install a script in your website with your chosen version control system. Currently, it only supports GitHub, so it will automatically install a script in GitHub which will run these automatic updates. Right. Then we have release tagging. This feature is specifically for New Relic Pantheon. If you are not using it, it won't work. I mean, it will give you scripts, but you'll have to do some customization to make it work on Acquia, AWS, custom hosting. But the base work of tagging a deployment with New Relic would be there. Now it's up to you or up to your needs how you want to integrate with your hosting provider or with your New Relic account, right? So this tool is going to give you all these scripts, release tagging, monitoring scripts, visual regression. Right now it is an alpha. You can check it on Composer. You can check it on GitHub. GitHub/digitalpolygon/Polymer is the repository, right? That's it. That was my time. You can reach out to me at gaurav@digitalpolygon.com if you have any questions. I use this template from SlidesGo. I have used Flatty Icon and FreePic for all the imagery in this, and then use some of the ChatGPT. So there is the credit line for all where I use these slides. Cool. I think we are on time as well. Thank you guys for attending. Thanks a lot.